All right, all praise to the Most High Yahweh and to His Son, my brother, Amashiach Yahushai. Peace and blessings to my brothers and sisters from the Israelite tribes. All right, in this video, we're going to get into R1 YDNA information. So, this is dealing with those Native American groupings of people. Some government agencies, some DNA agencies either acknowledge these groupings of people, paternal group, as Native Americans, or they just don't, just depends. But as we can see in this grouping of information, this is saying that one of the groupings of people that was on the land was also R1. They have C3 or one of the C groups of people. They have Q. So this is just a layout. Most of the time you see the reversal of the C. Like mostly the C group is like a coastal group and Central American grouping of people. Not so much dealing with Mexico, but more like Honduras, Nicaragua, Panama, and those Central American countries. And then the Q groups are dealing with most of midsections of North America and some parts of Central America, and similar with a lot of parts of South America. So you have those groupings of people being from Asia, and then you have this R1 group of people being from Europe and some parts of Asia. Because the irony is, these Japhites or these Japhetic people, these are the same people, just European and Asian-based groups of people. Their whole thing is, a lot of white people tend to think the Caucasus Mountains are closer to this made-up region of Middle East than Africa. And when they say Africa, they are excluding Egypt, because most of the time the irony is, they either accept Egypt as a part of the Middle East, or they don't accept them as a part of the Middle East. And you have, these white people wanting to claim fame to both areas, even though their only claim to fame is putting the divide, the Suez Canal. So that's the irony. So as you can see these R1B groups, R1A groups in different parts of India, Siberia, and then you see them in Europe. So you go back over here, and I know most of y'all are saying, this is the whole concept of white people using, a land grab method. Yes and no. Basically, they already took the land from these native groups of people. What DNA is showing is a unknown tale of history. So all these people are dark complexion people. The same when you look at these groupings of people. You do have in Africa, you have that little pocket R1B people in Chad region, and then you have uh, various complexion types in Europe of those groups. The interesting thing is, as you would see, some DNA groups tend to label this R1 group as a group that is based not so much in Chad region, that Chad Lake region or Chad region. They have them in the Great Lakes region, and them migrating out. And once they migrate out of Chad, or not Chad, but the Great Lake region, they tend to have this mutation, and the mutation is basically, coming via them living in another region. And once that happens, they easily lighten up. So you have them migrating up and out. And even though this chart shows them going into Europe, some charts that we've seen before show them going into Asia. So it's a mutation, and at that point we have to assume that that's when those geno traits are kicking in and everything. And but that shouldn't be the case, because everybody understands the story of Noah and his 3 sons, and how everybody grouping of people were born in a different region. Different generations migrated or became nomads and moved around, and that's where the development of people, diet and culture and social well-being is brought up in different regions. When we think about the cradle of civilization being in Africa, we are thinking more so about the Garden of Eden, and we are thinking more so of the format of the Shemitic groupings of people that was living in various parts of Canaan and Canaan, and those regions near Syria, Jordan, Palestine, and so on, in the region that we consider the Middle East. So you do have that understanding that most people get confused and conflicted over, because there was several Shemitic groups of people. You had Edomites, you had Moabites, Ammonites, you had all these Israelites, you had Ishmaelites, you had Hamites living in this region. So we had to better understand what we are looking at. So back to this R1 grouping of people, that can't be the case, because these people groups, this R group and this Q group, these are not that old of a grouping of people. And we understand how they tend to give us estimated settings on a lot of stuff and things that people groups are, but in reality, this is just a Japhetic group of people, And this is just, one of the groups of Japhet with the various mutations to where it could create different complexion types. So most of these people would be um, dark complexion people in the Americas. This R1 group should be the native grouping of people that was originally here would be most likely dark complexion people, and they are still dark complexion people today. It's just that this group is a vast group of people, and they will have also complexion types, different complexion types, pale to tan to dark complexion to a fair complexion. So you have that. So I just wanted to share with you that information. Let's see, and the other information is show you this real quick. So when I would hear the story of some people, some African American people considering and thinking themselves to be Native Americans or Black American people that was uh, descendants of this landmass that was the indigenous people of this landscape that is America. I often would be like, um, I could understand that argument because I was looking at it from a point of view of many of us as descendants of slaves. We were born here, so that would make us have that understanding that we don't have no ancestry ties other than the gene traits that um, trace us back to Africa. Other than that, many of us been here for a long time in all our lives to where we have to understand that we are the original people for that generation base of people that was here or that been here and basically got um, adopted by this landmass to be um, American-based products. Other than that, the whole content of just losing identity and culture and starting to um, pick up other content of dark races of people that we might come in contact with. That is the next possibility, but at the same time, due to those slave laws and content of how slave masters and merchant and other groups of um, people would do business with slaves, it makes you, understand that there's a difference between, being a Native American dark complexion person versus a Hamitic dark complexion person versus a Lascar dark complexion person versus a a Shemitic dark complexion person from West Africa. So they knew who people were. So that's why South Carolina had their laws set the way they did. So it just one of those things to where during that time it was easier for people to distinguish people groups. Even in the process of getting slaves, we have to have an understanding that yes, eventually a lot of different empires fell, and a lot of different tribes of people was delivered into slavery, but um, this was dealing with among empires and tribes on the continent of Africa before they decided to uh, add trade and network with other Hamitic people and European people to trade off um, different groups of people and or similar relative groups of people into the slave trade. So we have to understand that um, there was a overall thought process of how they was gonna handle everything until it was just one of those things to where to each their own, and that's why I often um, tell people that um, we have to understand how close these empires and people groups were with original trade and warfare, and what was to stop them from capturing other tribes, putting them into their kingdom or tribal servitude, and what was gonna stop them from saying, okay, the Europeans wanted to trade for labor, and what was gonna benefit those people group, even if they were close relatives in a nearby empire or kingdom. It was their tribe of people that was being sold um, into slavery or given to the Europeans. So we have to have a understanding that these was the things that occurred, especially if you have a smaller tribe and all the medium tribe of people. They had things to give to um, people that they trade with to sustain or to survive for a little bit longer in those conditions. Other than that, eventually, um, a lot of groups of prominent West African tribes got involved into the slave trade of rival tribes in their own people. So we have to be mindful that yes, our people was involved with the trade, self trade, with the with the slave trade market, and we have to be mindful that after these monarchs and governments start to abolish the slave trade because of the different rebellions and the abolitionists or the aborigines or the abolitionists, they was basically still trading people, and they still uh, sell people in the market today. So it's not. It was never a thing to where it ended. It just created a different market and sell tactic of people to relocate labor and funds. But back to this R1 stuff. So this was a article that a professor made, and this was something that I saw, and it's a similar format. I had a different formatted PDF, but the PDF was only showing what is showing now, just a summary of the information, and it's basically talking about this R1B group and how its representation of Black Native American ancestry versus African and European. So let's see, should I read it? Let me see. Okay. Sahili Baharini, ETL, and the Great Migration in African American genomic diversity argue that much of the genomic diversity of Afro American result from the Great Migration and admixture with whites. So these people are just trying to, claim that black people heavily mixed with white people, which could be the case and could be not the case. So it's up to us to figure this out. Although this is their view, the actual diversity among African Americans is probably the result of the African ancestry and admixture with Black Native Americans. So notice in this part, they're just saying, Black natives, and African, they mix. There was little evidence of African and European admixture in North America until after the Civil Rights Movement. So they are at an understanding that a lot of the population, the understanding of how slavery was, you had some high-end elite society person that couldn't their their father couldn't hold their genes to themselves. You have a very small percentage of those guys that would mix with slaves, even though most of the purpose of the slaves was to breed, to make stronger slaves for labor and for entertainment purposes of brutality and for a protection system for the slave master. And I'm just generalizing this. I don't know for a fact, but this is my understanding of how things would have worked by me looking at this DNA information. So there was little evidence of African and European admixture in North America until after the Civil Rights Movement. Using census data, Golison found that less than 20,000 mixed marriages occurred between 1850 to 1970 in the USA. As a result, we have to look elsewhere to explain the frequency of between 17 to 22% R1B. You're Asian admixture among AAs. So now they're saying from African base to European base, from black native base to a Euro Asian admixture. So now they are really trying to, confuse people and say, okay, all these people that decided to mix with these African people, no matter what, they was, mixed already. So they had a complexion about them, and then they start to mix again. The only problem is, if that's the case, all those people, the European people and the Asian people, like I've been saying, that Q, that R, G, H, I, J, K, what else? S, M, O, all those groups are the same groups of people. These are your pale to dark complexion, European, Asian, Japhetic people that are very closely related, and they just have different um, mutations to where they can alternate their genes to create dark or pale complexion people. So they are slowly saying, okay, these are Euro-Asian admixtures. So you just have to catch what they are saying, because the Q3 or the Q1 or the R1, the R1A, the R2 or whatever, all these groups are still within that race grouping of Japhet, the son of Noah, Japhet. So your Asian admixture among AAs to the 5, there was considerable admixture between AAs and Native American 11 to 12. So now you're getting the percentage ratings and everything, and that's when they are talking about those autosomal reports and everything. Uh, Many, okay, 11 to 12, this resulted from the fact that many Native Americans were black and had African ancestry, and they're going to just rub that in no matter what. And two, AAs or African Americans and Native Americans frequently worked side by side on the plantations. A majority of the North American Native Americans carry the R1 Halpogroup. Malone and Butler reported that the frequency of R1 among Afro-Americans varied between 0.3% R-M207, and these are just the different branches of our haplogroup. Ancestry estimate of 24%. European ancestry, and this is just more autosomal. So you have them using this information against dark complexion Native Americans via when they are in America. But when you reverse this information and use it via this people group coming out of, the Lake Chad, or not the Lake Chad, but the Great Lake region in Africa, you have them saying, "Oh, we're from Africa now." So white people tend to want to have certain DNA information carried in favor of their way versus when it comes to the obvious, when dark complexion people are dealing with the information, is like, okay, only percentages, we got to use the autosomal DNA information for this, and we got to use all these branches to confuse people because we don't want exactly them to find out which exactly the branches are dealing with dark complexion versus the branches that are dealing with pale complexion, and how is that coming about. And a lot of these DNA sequences actually tell you, once you get deep involved with this DNA information, it goes into those shorthand counts of repeated proteins, and it just tells you exactly whose group of people are closely related to who and what, I'm not that good in DNA information yet with reading that information, but I look at it and I go, okay, hopefully I get good at looking at that information and seeing exactly the various different repetitive content of the proteins that are consistently found in dark complexion people and pale complexion people of different haplogroups, you know. So where we at? Black Indians. So go back up a little bit. Um, I'm sorry, lost my place. So European ancestry and 0.8% Native American ancestry among Afro Americans, and they're definitely trying to say, okay, these are not your Native American people. These are just people that are just trying to hook up with Native Americans, Afro Americans, and Native American. That revealed that those two groups of people share many R haplogroup, including RM17, and yeah, these are those conflicting reports of this big Native American grouping. If you could recall that map, let's go back to this map. So this is a large piece of land that you would have nothing but dark complexion people. So, and you're looking at this R1 group, and these were your dark complexion Native American people, the those eastern, mid eastern, northern tribes that a lot of black people associate their ancestry with, and most of the time the white establishment and our government tend to say, okay, these are also African American people because of their skin complexion, versus not asking exactly them themselves who they are. So this is a big group of people in land to displace people identity. So that's why DNA information is decent information to get into and to look in on people identity and identity theft, because they are trying to displace a lot of people. But then you get into this R haplogroup people and you start to see, okay, civilized groups of people that have a lot of language and other heritage base for many years, are dark complexion people, and they have this common trait between themselves and so-called other African Americans that are, you know, similar in complexion type, and not just that, but they share branches with them. There's a great possibility that that's just the displaced, the people that have been displaced, via slavery. So we have to understand that that's the case. It's not okay. You get be these percentages, all of a sudden, you less than a percentage of a region, but automatically you do the haplogroup, and you start to spot and pick up heavy percentages of these similar groups of people. That just displacement. People coming back to the understanding of who they are, and we as Hebrew Israelites, we should be doing the same thing. If heathens are doing it, by and large of them getting access to paper trails and DNA information, we should be doing the same thing. So let's see. Afro American. Okay, the branches, 21%. Native American carried this haplogroup, while 17 point of African American carried the same. Okay, as you can see, I'm not the best reader. As you can see, I tend to jump around with some stuff because it's slowly becomes common sense when you start to look at this stuff, exactly what they are doing. So when Israelites go, okay, they are using DNA information to manipulate people into believing they are the same groupings of people, and they're using it to create one race of people. This is nowhere close to the case, because of the different autosomal results, even though a lot of social media platforms and DNA companies promote those kits, those autosomal kits, but that's only telling you a small percentage of people groups in history, and it's not constantly making people, the same people. Even with those percentages, if those percentages was able to be meant what everybody think it means, percentages of generational different ethnic groups and tribes of people, it wouldn't still add up to what we think is trying to create one race of people. So you have more R1 groupings in different parts of Haiti, Jamaica, and we go back to this map. And I like on this map, they just left it blank, even though when you get into the research of Carib Indians and Tainos and other Arawak groups of people in the Central Americas, you tend to see the repeated information of these people groups. They actually did interact with each other, and some of them did mix with each other. So, but at the same time, it wasn't like the C group mixing with the R group, or the C group mixing with the Q3 group, and so on. It was just, the same people group, Q and R, mixing with each other, and that's basically where you get that more refined, copperish, brown skin look of different Puerto Rican people, different Dominican people, different Haitian people, and other groups of people, and in those islands. We often think there's heavy pale skin Caucasian or pale skin European influence in those regions, when most of the time it's the opposite of that. It's heavy mixing among the similar groups of Japhet via Europe and Asia. So let's go back. And then we get other information about this group. And we're in West Africa. So this is where they try to pick a group. they try to say, okay, these are not European people. We gotta refine this search, and make sure we find some African tie-in and stuff, so we could better promote our grouping. The hiding of the two different groups of white people that we have to hide. So they go, okay, Guinea-Bissau, Nigeria, and what's the other one? Central Africa. So no, they just referring to a region, and then they talk about Hausa and Fula. So the irony is with these two groups. So these are super groups of people. They do have different ethnic groups among them. Not just different ethnic group, but they have different races of people among them. But all these people are dark complexion people, and they do have the ability to have these people among them, as in other videos I shared with different pictures or images of information dealing with percentages of Hausa and Fula and so on, being Shemitic or Hamitic and so on. So real quick, I wonder if I could do that real quick. We are gonna do this. So hold this thought. This is dealing with chat. So we are gonna go into this, one of my favorite charts up in here. Okay, YDNA of Sub-Saharan Africa, and we're gonna look into Hausa real quick. Okay. So this is the Hausa information. As you can see, they are heavily influenced by this R. So you have R, J, E2, E1B1B, I believe, E1B1A, E1B, and A. So as Hausa and Fula on here. So the Fula, they tend to go by different titles. Sometimes they go by Fube, Sometimes they go by Fulani. Sometimes they go by other mid-sized people group among those clans. Is there? Let's see. Let me find the Wolof. So you have the Wolof, and these are just interesting groups. So this group, I believe, is a part of those clans of Haza and Fula. So, like I said, you have these massive groups of people that tend to um, they they become the manifestation of Psalms 83 when you start to understand um, the heathens taking identities and or taking Israel away from who they are, and slowly these groups that did that, they are losing their own identity because they are starting to heavily mix their tribes and identity together. Maybe not mixing themselves together, but being around those groups of people, you tend to hide your identity and lose that identity after a while. So now we go back to this right here, and let's see, chat. This chat, and chat is R. So remember, a long time ago in one of my videos talking about Chris Rock. So Chris Rock is supposed to be a Hamite because his DNA is a B group. So this R1B, so this is R1B. This Chadic region is 70, I mean not 70, 95% at the R1B setting. The people group that is associated with this are the Oldumi or Dumi group of people, and like right here it says, yeah, okay, Oldumi. This is Chadic, and they tend to go, okay, these are Afro-Asiatic or Asiatic African people. And that's just telling you the whole concept of these groups of people are trying to use that Middle East terminology to sneak in people groups that on Psalms 83, because like we seen before, Edom. Let's go to Edom real quick. Edom is E1B1B. These are your Edomites, and let's see who has the highest percentage. Okay, 80. 80 is at what people group? The Berbers. So those would be your Moroccans, your Western Sahara people. That would be your people that occupy northern Africa via Algeria, Tunisia, Libya. And those same people are related to people in East Africa dealing with Eritrea, Ethiopia, Somalia. So we go back to, we saw this 80 and we scroll down. So is there a higher than 51. Okay, this is higher than 50, and this is a fur people, but there's something higher. So 70. This is dealing with Masalit people. Sorry if I said the tribe name wrong. It will happen. This group, the Somalis. So you have a Shemitic group of people. You have them being labeled as Cushitic, which is a Hamitic terminology, but then they are Afro-Asiatic as well. So you see them trying to maneuver, and this maneuver is that whole content of information dealing with the limbo information, that tie-in information of the limbo hoax and that Cohen modal DNA BS stuff. Because now you have these people group that could say, okay, we are these people from Sheba and Solomon, and we are, Jews. We are closely related to these people because we start to mix among them people and this people, and now we all are dark complexion. We all are also fair skin. We all are also pale skinned people, but DNA information don't, operate like that. You just can't have all these different Shemitic, Japhetic, and Hamitic groups of people having lineages very closely tied with DNA information. These DNA groups are basically, you know, set apart people. These are, A and B Hamitic groups of people. E1A to E2 are Shemitic groups of people. J through T are Japhetic groups of people. So that's how that works. And but I wanted to show. Sorry to get off, but I often show this. So we know E1B 1B is Edom. So we go to the white Indo people, the white people, because white people go, well, we've been in South Africa. Okay, okay, South African whites. So here we go. So you have B, AB, E1A, you have E1B1A. Okay, yeah, AB, E1A, E1B1A, E1B, E2, or I messed up with, I'm skipping someone, sorry. Okay, A, B, E1A, E1, B1A, E1B, E2, J, R, and T. So as you can see, this is the R group. So you have white people being this much of Edom. Let me scroll up. That's 9.6. So let me scroll up. Oh, my bad. E1B1B. I gotta go back to 9.6. Scroll across to make sure. Okay, that's them. So you have 9.6, E1B1B, you have E2, you have J, 3.8, and then you have 50.6 R, and then the next group is T. So these are white complexion people. And remember, all these other groups, like this chat group, this is chat. These are people deep in that desert Sahel region, in between the grassland and desert landscape. So we have to come to an understanding that these people are dark complexion people. Let's see, was there another high level of R? All right, 53. We go across and the full bay. So this is the same group of people that was talking about recently about the Fulani. So let's get into the other documentation. Oh yeah, it's on this one. My bad. So let me go across, and this is the title: Chat Genetic Diversity reveals an African history marked by multiple Holocene Euro-Asian migrations. So this is the PDF layout of the information. And often when I look at this information, I tend to just look for R1B YDNA information at first, and then I'll go back over to get into the detailed information, because most of the time I'm just interested in my people information, and then they tend to go into other information dealing with other people group, and that's good because I often say, we have to know information about our enemies and the heathens. So they do admixtures, they do mtDNA tests, I believe. They do YDNA, and let me see the branches. And I like how even when you like skim through this information and you start to know about people groups, they easily are starting to place um, a lot of these so-called European people in North Africa. They like, oh, these are people that are North African, and you can see this as you skim through this. It's like, okay, that's it. Okay, I thought this, it do talks about the R1B. In particular, they talk about the V88. That's the late chat grouping of people. Like I said, Afro-Asiatic, and they are still trying to, because okay, they go, white people can survive in the region if they are mixed, And then they go, white people can survive in a region if they are mixed and close to a body of water. And that's where you have those people that go, we was Egyptians, we were this, we was that, and these are just brand new groups of people, you know. So, and not just that, but it's telling them that they are mixing themselves to become more sustainable to these different environments that they migrated into. Let me do this map again. And there's nothing wrong with the same group of people mixing with each other, but you're doing it because, you know, you have a fair complexion type, and other groups of people have the right complexion type, and you go, okay, we're gonna use our closest relative and ally to, you know, manipulate these environmental challenges. So as you can see, these Qs, there's some Q groups up in here in Asia. You have some Rs. Um, you have some O's. You have J's. They can also use the J's as well. They have some dark complexion tint to their skin complexion, even though they might range from fair to a light shade of brown and so on. Um, but they have other people group among their closely related people to pull resources of content of saying, okay, we need to create darker complexion people to sustain in Africa, to sustain in the Americas and other parts, you know. Even though I might say the American part wrong, because like many of these people are dark complexion people, you know. This is them, the pale complexion people pulling from those resources to become people in those regions. So let's go back to this article. Now, I'm not gonna read all of this because it goes into different equations that they get into about these autosomal admits information. And all we need to grab from this information is they are really reaching with properly locating, you know, a home, an origin story for this R group in Africa. So they are just reaching, and there's um, no better way to reach than, you know, saying, okay, these people were here and then they migrated and did this and start. So they're just reaching, and they are trying to just take the identity, because they go, okay, we got DNA information, we could just say these are Euro Asian admits African people in this region. I'm not saying that, you know, these are the same people that most likely was a part of Rome that they sent to North Africa to colonize um, the region, because they had dark complexion. And for these people to, you know, create a relocation strategy for Rome. And so these people themselves were most likely displaced after the fall of Rome, and they wandered because Japhetic people, especially when they are dark complexion people like this, they could roam easily in Africa with not having effects from different environmental health problems, especially if they um, were North African based people and their generations been there for a while, they could easily. But often they try to put these people in places to where we know for a fact they didn't originate from those regions, you know, because Nat Geo showed this our group coming from the Great Lakes of Africa region and going into the Middle East and then into Asia for the final stop, and then other NIH information shows the same group coming from Chad into Europe, you know, and they go, the Asian part is coming from when they make that run through the Middle East. A lot of that region was called, Asia Minor, and once you hit that region, you're a different, you know, group of people. You're um, authentic Asian people at that point, but other people wouldn't be considered Asian from it because you have Hamitic people that are still called Cushitic people, and they was in the region for a while. But all these groups of people were nomadic people. That's why you don't get that DNA information tying them to the so-called Near East or the Middle East, and then you don't get that much information tying them to the Nile Valley. So a lot of people tend to get mad about that. They go, you can't say Bantu people is here. You can't say Bantu people did this. You can't say Bantu people. Well, I'm not saying anything. I'm just reading the DNA information, and it's telling us, this stuff. And then you look at many of these, like the Amara, the Oromo people, these Ethiopian groups of people, they are trying to create some entanglement with those people. And, it's like, these are just, people that are dark European people that Rome sent out and say, hey, we need CYA ASAP. Get into Africa, go as far as you can, you know. But all these are dark complexion people, not the pale complexion people. And then a shared pattern of Na in ancient times was also observed in the Sara Lahal speakers and other Africans such as Yoruba. So they are talking about language, I believe. Is it yeah, language. As you can see, there's no mention about African Americans in this piece. There's no mention about Native Americans in this piece. And this is I would try to link this information the into the YouTube video, and but other than that, this is just that that information that is trying to basically place, white people into time and space and history, and it's just not working. When DNA get a hold to the content, it's like, okay, well, we gotta do this to make it make sense. And well, what about these pale complexion Greek and Albanian people that are Shemitic people then? You know what I'm saying? What about them? Wouldn't they they should be in North Africa as well? They should be, uh, there with millions of people by now, because white people always say, they were Greek, they were Romans, they were Egyptians. Well, DNA is showing that your population and your sustainability is not good with the track record that you're trying to show via history. And then when we put the same track record up via science, it's not holding up. It's just not holding up at all. And it's talking about during the African humid period farming. It's like a lot of this data is also going into some PDFs, like skip a lot of this DNA information, and they use autosomal, and then when they go into autosomal, they start to get into a different type of science, and that's that dietary science, and it starts to talk about grain diets and other types of diets, especially in the west part of Africa. And when these people are saying that so and so is this and they are this, well, all the green and vegetation is mostly in West Africa. Yes, you have the Nile Valley region that stretch to where you could sustain civilizations, but it's not sustainable for your skin complexion, you know. So that's where I laugh at people on TikTok with these videos, with these we were feral, you know, they got, this EUpedia. I showed the website often. They do have a R1 feral, and most likely that was a dark complexion, Japhetic European feral that ruled for a short period of time. Other than that, it's not pale complexion white Caucasian people ruling for many years and generations in those regions, And people go, well, they've been in South Africa, and I just showed you the whole thing about that South Africa stuff. Yeah, okay. We go back. But you know what else is in South Africa? Many of these other people groups. And if your genes are so powerful, you'll be, percentages, like big percentages and half a percentages of many of these people groups. But instead, you have Israel being the perfect prophecy of being scattered and put among all these tribes of people. Um, Not dark complexion uh, European people, not dark complexion Asian people, just, Shemitic Hebrew Israelites are fitting this grouping of people. Let's see, is that all with this information? I think that's about it. This was like the main video that I wanted to make because I don't, I'm not a person, I tend to like trolling people after a while, but after a while it's not just trolling, it's like I'm trying to make informative statements and comments, about Native American people. And when I tell dark complexion people that are Native American, Latin American people, or Latinos that identify via DNA as Native American people, they have to understand and realize that they are related to Japhetic groupings of people, and that's dealing with a lot of these Asian groups and a lot of these European groups. Y'all are a part of the same racial structure of people. Y'all all came from Japhet. Y'all all are trying to closely intermix, and that's the other irony, Y'all didn't say, okay, let's start mixing with this Shemitic Moabite group that's traveled miles and miles away from the cradle of civilization to different parts of mainland Asia, into Australia, and now to the Americas. Y'all go, let's do this with these R1 people, these Eastern coastal North American groups of black people. Let's mix with them. And that's the irony, and not just that, but uh, you could have easily done it with this O group. This O group is also a group of people that tend to get lost in the information of men and everybody, region. But the O people are very similar to the R group and the Q group. These are the same people, same to K, S, M, G. All these people are the same group of people. So that's where the A information comes and say, hey, you're just, the same people that are related to white people. And it's sad that white people, the people that trying to portray the majority of those race of people, that they are most likely the minority, and they are closely related to y'all. So your own people, similar to the content and the information that some of our people, so us, into slavery on the continent of Africa, and then to escape from going into slavery themselves, they also captured slaves that they caught in their personal battles. And was there a possibility that they knew they were closely related? I'm pretty sure they knew they was related, because you're in the region, you're in empires and cities and kingdoms, and you've been doing trade and businesses for a long time, for many generations, and all of a sudden, those structures, as often as civilizations of these major empires fall apart, y'all empires fell apart. So I'm pretty sure they knew exactly who they was giving up, and why. And it was just for survival of the fittest, and for a more favorable, sustainable environment via trade and protection. So that's the thing that I often tell Hispanic or Latinos or Native Americans. I'm like, hey, the same white people that kill many of y'all, no matter how dark you are, no matter how pale you are, those same people are closely related to y'all. And not just that, but all y'all are closely related to many of these Japhetic groups of people in the Pacific, in Japan, and some parts of mainland China and Asia, India, same people, Siberia, same people. So I'm gonna end this video, and like always, all praise to the Most High Yahweh, and to His Son, my brother, Amashiach Yahweh Shai. Peace and blessings once again to my brothers and sisters. Thank y'all all for the views and the comments, and please continue to stay tuned. Thank y'all.